there's many people out there that just still say, like, I stand with Israel no matter what, can't criticize Israel. And you're just wondering, what is that person? They have to realize that there's something going on. I mean, even if you're not seeing the videos coming out of Gaza, but I mean, just like, the surprise attack on Iran, or if you're going down the Epstein case, the APAC, the undue influence, just how strange it is that all of our politicians are saying, yeah, we got to stand with Israel, stand with Israel. And people are like, well, let's talk about America. I just don't understand. Well, what's up with all those people? Are they not able to break out of that? Is it compromise? What's the psychology behind something like that?
Well, yeah, I'll just point to, maybe you didn't notice, but we had our picnic yesterday. And
I did notice.
You did notice. It was
the church?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I had noticed it on a previous trip up there. But yeah, they had a sign out front, "We stand with Israel." And, that's part of it. Now, these people aren't compromised. They just really believe, their theology has been distorted. Again, Christian Zionism was a fringe movement up until the 60s. It was growing. Okay, you did find it in some churches, but it was certainly a minority voice. And now it's become, over the last few decades, something very, very powerful. And the theology of these different churches, especially evangelical churches, has been seriously distorted, so that people think that that's part of being a good Christian. And that's very unfortunate. Again, it has no historical basis. And, we won't get into the theological arguments, but I think it's entirely unjustified, but it's there. And those people, I think you have to say many of them are sincere, and that sincere belief that they have prevents them from really opening their eyes. And they stay very firmly within the bubble where everything that Israel does is justified and is always a matter of defense. And the other people are always evil and out to destroy Israel, and they're agents of the devil or something. That's there, that's part of it. But of course there's, we don't want to overstate the power. That's not really the main source of Zionist influence. I think you need to go to the mega donors and the secular and Jewish Zionists that in the power structures, and they're there, and they can even if the population at large, and that's what the polls show, is shifting away from Israel and has a more negative view of them than they do of the Palestinians now, that just doesn't matter in the short run. I think in the long run it does. It matters a lot. But in the short run, even the medium term, it doesn't matter. The people who have their hands on the levers of power are committed Zionists.
Yeah, I just feel like it's just this deluge of negative PR for Israel because of all the atrocities they're committing. It's just, you can't hide from it. Just people are becoming aware slowly, bit by bit. They might have just heard one story here, one story there, but it's enough out there that I think it's permeating everybody's consciousness now. I mean, like even Mike Huckabee tweeted out saying, condemned the killing of an American citizen in the West Bank. This 20-year-old boy, Saif, was beaten to death by Israeli settlers, beaten to death and then they blocked any ambulances or anything coming to rescue him for 3 hours, just bleeding out. That's what
that's what happens there. That's the thing. That's a daily story. Occasionally, because he's an American, Mike Huckabee heard about it and some other Americans heard about it, but that's just what happens on a daily basis in the West Bank, which we don't even talk about because it's so much worse than Gaza. But yeah, I think there's no question that it is getting through slowly, and there will be a tipping point. And especially getting through to younger people who are, spend a lot more time on social media and are therefore exposed to these, these stories, these facts. Now it's probably more the older people who just watch Fox News and really don't have other sources of information. They're well insulated. I mean, if they were thinking, even then, I believe me, I think if you really were a thinking person and looking at, consuming information critically, and you just had Fox News, you would start to think, hey, this isn't adding up. I'm just thinking about my own case, like I used to just watch mainstream news and I was seeing these reports on Palestine and I say, wait a second, this just doesn't add up. And then that forced me to go or led me to, doing further research. This is decades ago. But most people don't do that. They're just passive consumers of news, and like these older people who, let's just watch Fox News, but it doesn't have to be Fox News, CNN, or whatever. They're just there is one narrative, and they trust it, and they trust it uncritically, and so their positions just don't change. But it's by and large, it's not true of younger people. I mean, there's a different media landscape, and it is getting through to them. So we see all across the political spectrum, there has been a dramatic shift away from Israel among younger people.
Right. I don't know if you've seen this term being going around, just people saying, "Oh, I'm doing a lot of noticing." People are noticing. So I think what we're experiencing, we've used the term like people are having an awakening, but I like the term the great noticing. We had the great awakening before, but now what we're in the middle of right now is this great noticing. And noticing is just noticing that, hey, there's something strange going on in this relationship between Israel and the United States. And there's a lot of manipulation. There's something going on with this corruption. We got the Epstein pedophile thing. But it's just noticing that there's just such an evil force out there that is manipulating narratives, manipulating our realities. And it's like, but now we're becoming aware of it, that we've been lied to about so many things in our life. We've been lied to about all these wars in the Middle East. We've been lied to about Israel. We've been just everything, we can go all the way back, World War II, whatever. But now it's like we woke up from the Matrix. People are getting unplugged, and there's going to be, that's where we're at. And so it's just it's a scary time, but a very exciting time, because I'm seeing it just this in real time, people waking up and like, something's messed up. Like I told you right before this podcast, I watched that interview with Tucker Carlson and Daryl Cooper. And it's something I think everybody should listen to. I mean, when people listen to this story of Epstein, and just this is, Daryl Cooper doesn't go into speculation. He just lays out the facts. Everything's verifiable. It's just unbelievable how evil this whole thing is, and just how everything we've been told about our country being the greatest nation. It's like, I have this revulsion now of my country. And I think a lot of people are starting to experience that. I don't want to put all the blame on Israel. A lot of it is our own complicity and our willingness to do these things. But we can, it's the intelligence agencies in general are kind of, that's one thing that Daryl Cooper was saying. It's not so much that we shouldn't just frame it as like, oh, it's a Mossad agent. He was kind of a freelancer that was being used by the CIA, by Mossad, by MI6,
so they often work together. Yeah.
Right. So, we don't want to just frame it all just like this is, but the whole thing, this evil cabal, and it's all part of the world that we were celebrating, the Western world, this great civilization, freedom and democracy, all this thing. And it's all ripping apart at the seams for me. It's just all like, everything's just been everything's been a lie. And I don't, as this great noticing continues to accelerate, I'm just waiting for the revolution. I'm waiting for the break, because this will break America. I'm certain of it. Well, it is breaking America. It is breaking the West. All these wars, but it's more than that. It's just this deep state. We began to realize, okay, yeah, the deep state, yeah, it's a real thing. But then you just started to realize just how evil the deep state is. And then it's just like, we can't, this is our country. Like we allowed this, we somehow did, that just how many people are complicit in this, and all the mental gymnastics they must have done to convince themselves that, oh, we're doing the right thing, that we're somehow on the right, that it's okay if we, blackmail people with pedophilia or whatever it is, anything, just the most disgusting things, or let's starve 1 million people to death, bomb this country, do this, It's just it's just evil. It's just evil, and I don't know how to really handle it. I don't know how the country's going to handle it. I don't know how everybody in the world is going to handle it.
Yeah. Well, one thing, I think you're right. There is this great noticing. It still has a ways to go, but it is real. Again, the full polls reflect this fact. The problem is, like, you can have an entire populace that, let's say, wakens up to a reality, opposes something that's going on, and yet nothing will change. And that is because in the end, you need to have organized power to make a difference. That's just the way it is. That's a fact. Just sort of like a general sentiment Okay, great. That can be the building material for organized power. But if you don't have organized power, nothing changes. The people that are organized and have the power will continue to control policy. And that's what we see. We see it in our country and we see it in Europe as well. So you need alternatives. Trump presented himself as an alternative and maybe even had some real intentions of being an alternative. But he is clearly, with some exceptions, has clearly failed to do that and has been co-opted and has been a great disappointment. I think a lot of people didn't wake up into the fact until this Epstein scandal, and that seems to be what, for me, it's one of the lesser evils. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. Maybe I don't know. I'll listen to that interview.
Listen to it. I mean,
I will. Okay, I may change my mind on that. But I mean, there was enough to be outraged already that you didn't need an additional scandal, and those other things should have woken up more people to what was going on. But this, for whatever reason, I can understand why, has really reached people and has reached Trump's base and is really hurting him, and may just tear apart the whole MAGA movement. And that's probably good, because I think, again, I've always argued that Trump is somebody who, put himself out there as a real alternative. And, maybe there was a kernel of truth to that. But in the end, he's just incapable of following through and just didn't have the moral courage or the principles or the intellectual understanding to really carry through on that. So he's been sort of a false messiah. And we need politicians and maybe a whole new political party that can really, when they finally seize the reins of power, they can make a real difference. We're just not going to see a real difference under Donald Trump, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, he's compromised. And what this is the problem is that I feel like so many people are compromised within our government that are at least associated with the evils of the deep state. You become part of it and it affects you. And then once the light is being shown on it, I think these people, they know they have to band together, and they have all the power, they have all the money. So, they might be more brash, more irrational now. They know that this is it. We gotta clamp down. We gotta go full authoritarian, or we just gotta start World War III. I just don't like the fact that there might be some satanic pedophile cabal that's going to start World War III, and we're the ones that are underneath the rule of these people.
Yeah, well, what can I say? But power is corrupting. I think this is something I think I made the point last time too. It's just that there are all kinds of populist candidates, but when they get into power, they're surrounded by all these people, and if they have any sort of insecurity or some sort of gap in their understanding, these people know how to play them, and in the end, make them a part of the team that rules. And that's what you see again and again. Those people that withstand all those pressures are really very rare. And I name some of them. You find some of them on the left, like Dennis Kucinich is one example. But then you find like these libertarians like Ron Paul and Thomas Massey. There are other examples, but they're very rare. They're very rare. Sometimes Thomas Massey is just one guy against the whole House of Representatives. And most people, they get there and they're told, they already have these insecurities, they're worried about being reelected, and they say, well, this is what you got to do. You got to take this money. You got to work with these people, and by and large, that's what happens. Whatever statements they made during the campaign, when they get into the club, they become members of the club. And now there may be one day where that just isn't true. You need some strong individuals. History, there's this great man view of history, which, is poo-pooed often. But individuals, an extraordinary individual really can make a difference in certain, in these times of crisis, can lead the country, one way rather than another. So we need some extraordinary individuals, and I think we have, like we're saying, there is the great noticing. There are people that are ready to serve somebody like that who really does understanding that we could have a new party, a new movement. We're just, we don't see it right now. We see the the current party is really just falling apart and becoming increasingly unpopular. There's the polls show that Trump is a very unpopular president. But when you ask, what the let's say the potential voter thinks about the Democrats, they give them even lower scores. So there is just a general crisis of legitimacy, and that's an opportunity for some new movement. But we don't see it yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about Elon Musk's America Party.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And he's been a committed Zionist. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Although he did, I don't know, he's gone a bit rogue recently. Yeah. Who knows? Well, we need a new leader, Dad. What do you think about the position? You want to?
No, I'm just not cut out for that. I'll comment from the sidelines and do my part in that way.
I just the whole thing just needs to burn to the ground. This whole government. I'm really at that point. It's just I can't believe how I just remember how I felt about America when I was a kid, and how I feel about it now. It's just a night and day difference, and I think so many people are coming to the same realization I'm coming to, and just this revulsion of our political leaders, our elite, our deep state, our intelligence agencies, the undue influence of our lobbies in Israel.
Right. Well, let's be honest. I mean, we were a very successful country, like especially in my youth in the 1960s, and we're the envy of the world for a reason. I mean, life really was very good, and it still is good, but I think we all feel it's on a downward trajectory. So, there was a reason to be very proud of being an American, and just I remember that. I think there was a better time. There always have been problems, and probably back then we weren't aware of them as we should have been, but it was a better time. But now, we're entering very, very dark times.